Hey guys, this is lesson 6.4 called Common Denominators. Our essential question is, how can you write a pair of fractions as fractions with a common denominator? Alright, so we're going to start with unlock the problem. Martin has two rectangles that are the same size. One rectangle is cut into 1/2 square parts, and the other rectangle is cut into 1/3 size parts. He wants to cut the rectangles so they have the same number, or have the same size parts. How can he cut each rectangle? Okay, well first of all I want you to understand what a common denominator is. A common denominator is a common multiple of the denominators of two or more fractions. Fractions with common denominators represent wholes cut into the same number of parts. Okay, so when they're talking common denominator, so if I have 1/4 and 2/4, okay, denominators are your bottom numbers and your numerators are your top numbers. Okay, so obviously these two would have common denominators of 4. Okay, just for an example. Okay, but that's if you have, the same fraction. We're going to be cut into a situation where we're talking with 1/2 and 1/3, and obviously those denominators aren't the same. So we got to figure out how can we make those denominators the same. So it says you might need two sheets of paper, one that you can fold in half, and then another one where you can fit into folds, or like a trifold, like kind of like a brochure type of deal. So model 1, the rectangle cut into 1/2 parts, fold one sheet of paper in half and draw a line on the fold. Okay, so draw a piece of paper in half and fold it over. Then model the rectangle cut into 1/3 size parts, fold the other sheet of paper into thirds. So like take your piece of paper and fold a piece in and fold a piece in, and then you should have 3 parts. Okay, fold each sheet of paper so that both sheets have the same number of parts. Draw the lines on the folds. How many equal parts does each paper have? Okay, so here's what I would do. I would take your half piece of paper, so it's like this, okay, and it's cut in half, and I would fold like a little piece down, okay, and then I would fold another piece up here. So you should have 6 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, if you're looking to do this one right here, I would just fold this over. So you would have a line that comes like this. So either way, how many equal parts does each sheet have? 6. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, draw a picture of your sheet paper to show how many parts the rectangle should have. So again, you should have a picture that looks like this. Okay, so if you can see in there, you can see the 1/2 that we had earlier. Okay, then you can see the thirds that we had split it into. Okay, so like here, here, and here. But then, okay, we broke it down even farther, and we broke that down into 6 pieces. Okay, so the rectangle should be put into 6 parts. Okay, going on to the next part. Actually, I want to show you something quick here. Okay, so you can use like manipulatives to help you, but I want to put the fraction, oops, I want to change the color. I want to put the fraction 1/2 and 1/3 here. Okay, what do you notice about this denominator and this denominator? Like, what do they have in common? Okay, you can't, and when I'm saying something about using common, I'm talking about multiplication. What's the lowest number that both 2 and 3 can go into? Okay, well that case it's 6. Okay, so I'm going to write 6 on the side. 3 times 2 equals 6. So 1 times 2 is 2. And then 2 times 3 is 6 times 3. And I'll explain here what I'm doing here. But what I just did is I found the common denominator here. Okay, like what I just did here, is I'll show you some more of how to do that. Okay, So write 4/5 and 1/2 as a pair of fractions with common denominator. So we're going to kind of get into what I just showed you there. You can use common multiples to find a common denominator. List multiples of each denominator a common multiple you can use as a common denominator. Okay, so they first want you to look at your denominators, your bottom numbers, and find the multiples of that. So count by fives, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30. Okay, then we'll go by twos. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12. Okay, now they want you to find the one that they had in common. What does 5 and 2 both have in common, or what is the lowest number that they both can go into using multiplication? And that would be 10. Okay, they both have 10 in common. So, coming down here, okay, they want you to, like I did before, so how I had 4/5 and 1/2, then I found that the common denominator between both of them was 10. So 2 times what is 10? 5. So what I do to my bottom, I have to do to my top. 1 times 5 is 5. Okay, and then 5 times what is 10? 2. What I do to my bottom, I got to do to my top number. 4 times 2 is 8. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of repeat those steps that I just did up and put them up here. And I got the fractions 8 over 10 and 5 over 10. So, whoops. So my new fractions, so I can write 4/5 and 1/2 as 8 over 10 and 5 over 10. Okay, so most importantly is finding your common denominator, the lowest number that they both go into. A lot of times you're just going to have, you'll multiply those two numbers. Like basically what we did was 5 times 2. But sometimes that's not always the case, because sometimes that number can actually go into that number, which hopefully we'll find some examples like that. So number 1, are 4 and 5 equivalent? Let's see. No. Okay, because they do not represent the same amount. So if I were to draw 4/5 out, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4 to 5, then I was supposed to draw the same shape right underneath it, and if I fill in a half, okay, 4/5 is going to be a little bit bigger. Okay, so no, they are not equivalent, because they are not the same amount. Okay. Alright, number 2, describe another way you can tell whether 4/5 and 1/2 are equivalent. Well, they're both written in simplest form, so if the fractions were equivalent, the simplest form of the fractions would be the same. So I'm going to put they are, they are in simplest form. They're in simplest form, which in saying that if they were equivalent, they would be the same. So they are in simplest form and not the same. Okay. Alright, this bottom part, I'm going to have to kind of move my screen up a little bit, cut that short. Okay. Find a common denominator for 1/3 and 1/12. Alright, so I have 1/3 and I have 1/12. So I'm going to bring up 1/3 and 1/12. Now I have to find my common denominator between 3 and 4. So factors or multiples of 3 would be 3, and then 3 times 2 is 9. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 5 is 15. Okay, I'll do 12. Okay, 12 times 2 is 24. 12 times 3 is 36. And I can already just stop right there because I already can see that the common denominator, the lowest number that it can go into both 3 and 12 is 12. Okay, so 12 becomes my new denominator. Okay, and then I'm going to multiply 12 times 1 is 12. So what I do to my bottom, I do to my top. 1 times 1 is 1. And then 3 times 4 is 12. 1 times 4 is 4. Okay, so I found my new denominator, common denominator, which was 12. So if I take a look at this one, I can split 1/3 also to look the same as my other one. So 1/12, 1 is filled out of 12 pieces, and in 1/3, 1 piece is filled out of 3 parts. Okay, so I'm going to take my pen and I'm going to show you that I can also make this 1/12. Okay, so I have 1 filled out of the 12 parts. Okay, so my common denominator would be 12. Okay. All right, coming over here, write the pair of fractions as a pair of fractions with a common denominator. Okay, so I have 1/2 and actually they never give us enough room. 1/2 and 1/4. Okay, my common denominator, I'm already going to say that's 4 because 2 can go into 4 and 4 can go into itself. Up here. Okay, so 2/4 and 1/4 would be my common denominator. So write a pair of fractions. Okay, so my other one that I already had 1/4, so 2/4. Another one would be, let's see, I could take 1/4. I could take it over 2 over 2. So my next fraction could be 2 over 8. Let's see, and 2, if I did the same thing to 2 over 4, I could change that. If I went 2 over 2, took that times 2 over 2, I would have 4 over 8. Okay. So there are a lot of possible answers actually for these ones. So as long as you have something that have common denominators in it, should work. All right, number 3. 3/4 and 5/8. Okay, my common denominator between the two of them, I'm going to change that to 8. Because 8 times 1 is 8 and 4 times 2 is 8. 1, 1. And 4 times 2 is 8, 3 times 2 is 6. Okay, so 6/8 and 5/8 would be your fractions that are a new pair of fractions with a common denominator. I should also probably explain to you what I'm doing when I take it over, like this one when I took it 2 over 2. So what this really means, if I have 2 out of 2, and I'm just drawing this here, that means I have 2 pieces, my denominator, and then my numerator is how many's filled in, so 1, 2, which really, when 2 out of 2 pieces are filled in, or 3 out of 3, or 4 out of 4, that always means 1 whole. Okay, that always means 1 whole, because that's all filled in. Okay, we'll do some more examples together. 1/3 and 1/4. So find your common denominators for 3 and 4. We'll just start with 3 just so we have an idea. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 5 is 15. Okay, I'll do some for some 4s. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times 5 is 20. Well, I already found my common denominator of 12, so that's going to be my bottom number. 4 times 3 is 12, so what I do to my bottom, I have to do to my top. Okay, 3 times 4 is 12, times 4 over here. Okay, so my new fractions would be 4 twelfths and 3 twelfths. Okay, over here, this one's going to be a little bit trickier. Okay, so we have 4 twelfths and 5 eighths. Okay, so we'll go with 12 times 2 is 24. 12 times 3 is 36. 12 times 4 is 48. Okay, we're going to do some for 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 8 times 3 is 24. 8 times 4 is 32. Okay, I've already found my common denominator of 24. Okay, so I'm going to come over and make that my new denominator. Okay, 8 times 3 is 24. 5 times 3 is, 15. Let me do that one over. Okay, 12 times 2 is 24, so what I do to my bottom, got to do to my top. 4 times 2 is 8, so my new pair of fractions with the same common denominator would be 8 over 24 and 15 over 24. Okay, write a pair of fractions as a pair of fractions with the common denominator, so kind of same thing, or same thing I guess. So we have 1/4, and I'm just going to do a bunch of examples with you, so you kind of get the gist of what's going on. Okay. Oh, darn. Need to stop touching the side of the screen. Okay, so 4 and 6. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 5 is 20. 4 times 6 is 24. Okay, 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 3 is 18. Alright, so I already found my common denominator of 12. Okay, so 12 becomes my denominator, my bottom number. Okay, 6 times what is 12? 6 times 2. 5 times 2 is 10. Okay, 4 times 3 is 12. 1 times 3 is 3. So my new fractions would be 3 twelfths and 10 over 12. Okay, over here, 3 over 5 and 4 over 10. Okay, trying to find a common denominator. And this one's a little bit easier because I know 5 can go into 10. 5 times 2 is 10. So 10 times 1 is 10. So 4 times 1 is 4. Okay, 5 times 2 is 10. So 3 times 2 is 6. So my new fractions would be 6 over 10 and 4 over 10. Okay, number 8. Tell whether the fractions are equivalent or equal to or not equal to. So 3/4 and a half. Okay, if you get your tiles out, shoo, bless me. If you get your tiles out, you'd see that if I have a bar here, 1, 2, 3/4, and I'd color in 3/4 of that, and I have another one that's the same size, and I have just half filled in, you'd know that 3/4 is just a little bit bigger, so they are not equivalent. Okay, 3/4 and 6/8. This one would be equal to, and I can show you why. Alright, so if I have 3/4, so I have, oops, well, I can't draw on those. So if I have 3/4, that's 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then my other fraction was 6/8. So I'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and if you look at this line, it goes straight up to where my 3/4 area is. So those two fractions would be equal. Okay, same with this one. You have 1/2 and 4/8. So let's go to our tiles. Here's what 1/2 looks like. And then what was my other one? 4/8. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, notice how this line goes straight up with my half one, so I have this half bar would fit perfectly on top of 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. Okay, so those would be equal to. And then my last one, these two wouldn't be equal because I have 4/8 and 6/8. Well, just taking a look at here, 1, 2, 3, 4/8, and then 5, 6. Okay, that would just be adding 2 more 8s on there, so that one's not equal to. Okay, so hopefully that was enough practice for you to be able to do your homework. If you have any questions, please let me know. Make sure you guys are finding your common multiples. That really helps if you're not sure what to change your denominator to. Like I said, if you have any questions, come ask me. Otherwise, go back and look at some of the examples we did and any extra videos that are on Schoology. Alright, have a good rest of your day. Thanks.